Hi, Dan Davies, independent Conservative candidate here for Peace River North, sitting with former MLA, former Conservative Senator, appointed by Stephen Harper, I believe.
Yeah.
Richard Neufeld. So thanks for popping in, Richard. Appreciate it.
Good to be here.
Yeah, appreciate it. We've been talking, you and I have talked a lot over the past number of years, even back when you were the MLA and back when you were the Senator. It's been good having a relationship with you. Certainly as a mentor for myself, I've asked you a number of things and to get your thoughts and opinions, because you've lived in the region, right? You've experienced, Northern Rockies, lived up in Fort Nelson, you were the mayor of Fort Nelson, former minister. So I've always valued that, that advice. We've talked a lot in this election. There's two things that, the Conservative piece, which, this is a race on the right? There's no vote split here. And you've experienced that. What's your thoughts on the split up in Peace River North?
Well, I don't, all the time I was there. It's a while ago now.
Yeah.
That was never an issue, vote splitting in Peace River North. That's what I was familiar with. There's other places in the province where obviously it's serious, and all you have to do is go back to when the Reform Party ran almost a full slate of candidates, and all we did was split the vote enough that the NDP slipped in with something like 30% of the vote, and that's where you have to be careful. So here, it's more about getting your voice heard in Victoria, getting the people's voice heard from here, what their problems are, what their issues are, what they think they'd like to see happen, and those kind of things. So that's always an issue, because we come from a part of the province where the larger population says, where's that? That's true.
And that's always been, even when you were in government, it was still a challenge to get the voice down there.
I've always said that the Rocky Mountains filter an awful lot. And they go right across the province just south of here. So.
And that's so true, and even that's one of my main, like when I've been in debates before, I always start off my debate talking a little bit about the region and the importance of this region, right? It's just to try and build that narrative to the folks in the Lower Mainland or on Vancouver Island. Back when you sat, the two of you got elected as reformers. Party status was 4, so you weren't a party yet. It's interesting. In the last 7 years, a lot has changed in the legislature, and a lot of that came from when the Green Party propped up the NDP back in 2017. A lot of the changes were to reform the legislature in British Columbia. And I know that there was a lot of those conversations, and a lot of those things have come into play now. Standing orders have changed. Now 2 people, like I say, can form a party in British Columbia, which I think is really interesting as we are seeing the number of independents run. And you're right. I think it's really important I'm running as an independent. I'm only looking at this riding, what I can do in this riding, and how I represent this riding. The others are doing their own thing based on their own, because we're all independent. So, I mean, I think it's really important to understand that I don't necessarily support all the other independents, because if you're in that place where the NDP are 30, 35, 40%, you do jeopardize that. But up here, this is a race on the right? This is, choosing the best conservative, the person with that, experienced conservative leadership is kind of, what this race is up here.
Well, and that's what you've been consistently saying, and I don't disagree with you for a moment. I think people will look at your record, they'll think about all the things that you've done for this region, and like you've said a number of times, you can actually say what you want now.
Not bound by the party.
But you got to be careful about that too. I mean, it's not, you can just say anything, but you can focus more on the constituency itself. And I think that makes a big difference. But I agree with you, it's a run on the right-hand side. It's not that, I'm not even sure the NDP have a candidate.
They got a papered guy out of Victoria, Staffer.
So they've parachuted someone
Yeah.
in, and they've done that a number of times. So it is between you and the Conservative candidate, and so I think people will look at that and they'll say, do I know the Conservative candidate? Has he been involved in the community? Has he held any other positions in government in the community? Is he knowledgeable about the community?
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're going to have to make their minds up from asking themselves those questions. Certainly, you fill all those questions on the right, on the yes side.
Yeah.
I mean, you were born and raised here. You've been involved in local politics. You've been involved in federal politics. You've been involved, obviously, the last 7 or 8 years with the province.
Yeah.
And people can see, what you've done. So I think pointing out what you've accomplished, what you've done sitting as a single individual is important.
Yeah, and that's one of the points that I've talked a lot about, is that experienced Conservative leadership that I've, whether it was when I was running for the nomination for the Federal Conservative Party up here back in 2011, I think it was, sitting on the EDAs of both the Federal Conservatives as well as formerly BC Liberal, which was, the BC Liberal Party. And a lot of people, this is where so much confusion up here. Well, you're a Liberal. Well, no, the BC Liberal Party was a right-of-centre party. It was very much a coalition, predominantly Conservatives in that, but it was designed to defeat the NDP. And people are confused about that. And, the word Liberal has become a toxic word, obviously, with what we've seen in Ottawa. And I've had this conversation. I mean, you're a Conservative individual. Pat Pym was a Conservative.
Yeah.
And we've all served under the BC Liberal banner, because it was the right party at the time that did a lot of great stuff. And the record of the BC Liberals under Gordon Campbell and Christy Clark, a lot was accomplished.
Yeah.
A lot was built in this province, and formerly the Social Credit. They've all been really good right-of-centre parties and coalition parties that have built this province.
Yeah. Well, you're entirely correct. I mean, I belonged to the BC Liberal Party for quite a while. And it was a right of center. Same as Social Credit. WAC Bennett started that.
Yeah.
When federal Conservatives and federal Liberals started one against one another, and British Columbia split the vote, and the NDP comes up the middle.
Yeah.
And so what was given to the Conservatives by Kevin removing everyone was a golden handshake. Whether he plays it right or not is yet to be seen.
Yeah.
And I guess on election day, we'll see that.
The only poll that counts.
Yeah, up here, I remember when I moved from Reform to BC Liberal, I didn't do that on my own. I didn't just decide, wake up one morning and say, I'm going to switch. I had a lot of pressure from voters in this constituency, and my board of my local constituency all wanted me to switch because we wanted to make sure that we didn't get the NDP in again, which we had just finishing splitting the vote as BC Reformers, and allowed the NDP to have another 5 unfortunate years. They gave us 10 dark years in British Columbia. Don't want to see that happen again.
Yeah, and we've I've certainly, and just to wrap up, I've never been opposed to uniting the right, and in British Columbia we've seen similar in Alberta, when the right divides, whatever that looks like, the NDP come up and win. So I think your one point that you said, meeting with your constituency, your riding association, and deciding that what you did was the right thing for the riding, was the right thing for Peace River North, is exactly where I am. Everything I've ever done and all my decisions always moving forward are going to be what's best for Peace River North. And I think with the changes in standing orders and how the legislature runs under the present, situation with what happened with the BC United, and having that voice, this is the right decision. This is the right decision for me. I think this is the right decision for Peace River North. Having myself run on the right and sending that right Conservative voice down to Victoria to continue to represent with good leadership.
Yes, exactly. And we've had good leadership with you. You've explained that many times to the people. and you will continue to do that. So I commend you for the work that you've done on behalf of this constituency. The other thing is, depending on what happens in Peace River South,
Yep.
will have an effect on you also, because this is what we call the Peace Country.
Yeah.
It is. It's the only part of British Columbia that's east of the Rockies.
Yeah, yeah.
And it just cuts us right off.
Yeah.
So many of the things that happen in Peace River South are the same
Very
as what
similar.
happens in Peace River North.
Yeah.
It's very, very similar, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's agriculture, whether it's forestry, they're all those major things,
Yeah.
right? So you've done a good job, Dan, and I'm certainly supporting you, and I hope the electorate here looks closely at your accomplishments and says, yeah, we want who we know, who we've worked with over the last 7 years, rather than somebody brand new that probably doesn't have a lot of knowledge about what goes on in Peace River North. So,
All right.
congratulations.
Well, thanks, Richard. Appreciate
Yeah.
your time. Thanks.